24/7. Check us out on YouTube, Facebook, and X. And for the premier sports talk experience, tap into our Roku channel. Start your mornings with Mac and Jack covering all the weekend sports action. Then pour a cup and enjoy all the sports you can drink on the Coffee and Sports podcast. At midday, talk sports from east to west on the Coast to Coast podcast. Followed at night by some hot girl talk with Prim and Proper Sports featuring Sonia Pearson. Talk boxing on the Gloved Fist. Yankee fans tune in for Start Spreading the News. And there's more on the College Sports Huddle and Sports Scope with Robert Butler. And that's just a sampling. There are 20 podcasts in all and 70 weekly shows giving us a 3.4-star viewer rating. To find us on Roku TV, search for National Streaming Sports on the Roku search bar. Click on the logo and you're in. For laptops, mobile phones, and tablets, download the Roku app. National Streaming Sports, live and on demand, sports talk for America.
Football season is here, and SeatGeek is my go-to for buying tickets. Now, with SeatGeek, every single ticket is backed with their buyer guarantee. We've all had plans change, and when you can't make it to the big game, SeatGeek has you covered. They're the only ticketer that allows you to return your tickets ahead of the event for credit with SeatGeek swaps. So when things come up, I know that my tickets won't go to waste. So what are you waiting for? Download the SeatGeek app to maximize your possibilities and shop live events with confidence.
If you like the sweet science, get ready to talk boxing on the Gloved Fist podcast with top boxing writers Frank Latirzo and Jack Hirsch. Frank, a former amateur boxer out of Philadelphia, writes for NY Fights and can be seen on the Boxing Channel. Jack, an amateur boxer who competed in the New York Golden Gloves, was a 6-term president of the Boxing Writers Association. And now, here's Frank Latirzo and Jack Hirsch.
Welcome to Glove Fist, and we're back. My name is Frank Latirzo, joined by former 6-term Boxing Writers Association President Jack Hirsch. Jack, how are you doing tonight?
Hey, good, Frank. Real good, exciting weekend. Great light heavyweight. Great light heavyweight title fight. There's going to be a rematch. There should be. You know, it's an absolute natural. And fights like Better Beef Bivol, they really get you going. They really reinforce why we love the sport. Very competitive fight, controversial fight, high quality. You know, I want to see them do it again.
You think it would, Jack? I'm not sure if it was a great fight. It was a good fight. But was there high drama? I'm not sure.
It was a compelling fight because we didn't know what was going to happen. I mean, a fight doesn't necessarily have to be exciting to be entertaining. It's entertaining if there's drama involved. It's like a movie. It might not be the greatest movie, but if it's building towards a conclusion, we wonder what that conclusion is going to be. Right, exactly. And Better Beef Bivol was building towards a conclusion. You know, Bivol gets off to the early lead, and the question was, could he hold Better Beef off for the remainder of the fight? And technically, he held him off in the sense he went the distance. And a lot of people feel Bivol won the fight, even though Better Beef got the decision. And yours truly, as you know, feels that Better Beef legitimately won the fight. But you go over social media, and it seems like more people than not feel Bivol won the fight. A draw would have been the natural. I think a draw maybe would have left everyone happy, waiting for the rematch. But listen, the rematch will be welcome. And it's good for both guys' career, Frank, in a certain sense, because they automatically have a big fight waiting from next, the rematch. And Bivol would then have to fight the Benavidez Morel winner. They're talking about that fight that's going to take place in the spring. And Better Beef, I guess, would have been in with one of them. But everyone wants to see the rematch now.
Jack, let me run this by you. Look, it's no secret. I really didn't know who was going to win this fight. I'm on record of picking both guys, but my official pick was Bivol, and he lost. My question to you is, you had it 7-5 Better Beef. You picked Better Beef. I had it 7-5 Bivol. I picked Bivol. Could it be one of those things where, forget what the masses think, Jack, I think it's about 60-40 in favor of Bivol, but do you think it could be that our scores were almost the same, except you picked Better Beef to win, and subconsciously you may have given him some of the swing rounds where I picked Bivol to win, and maybe subconsciously I gave him some of the swing rounds. And at the end of the day, neither guy really won or lost the fight, in my opinion.
Well, you make a good point, and your answer is maybe. Maybe subconsciously I was, but
because it was that close.
Analyze my scorecard for 1 second, Frank. At the end of 9 rounds, I had Bivol up 5-4. I had him up. The 10th round was a close round. Better Beef edging out. Okay? Close round, I had him edging it out. Now, you could have given the 10th to Bivol conceivably, too. I understand that. But you can't argue with Better Beef getting the 10th. And all 3 judges did give Better Beef the 10th round. Rounds 11 and 12, they were no doubters to me. I mean, Better Beef won both those rounds. So, yeah, but the point is, Bivol was in position on my card up 5-4 to kind of make a case for himself, close it out, at least win 1 round clear enough that I'd have to give it to him.
If Bivol wins one of the last 2 rounds, Jack, I don't think there's a case at all for Better Beef, but he didn't. So it comes down to, I think, look, you can't go back and rescore it. The night of the fight, I had it 7-5 Bivol, but I am not going to deny the fact that I was shading the rounds for him because I thought the fight was going more his way, and I did pick him to win. So I did have a rooting interest, but I could have lived with a draw. And when the decision was about to be announced, and it could have been the influence of Timothy Bradley, but I thought that Bivol was going to get the decision. I was a little shocked when Better Beef got it.
Well, when the final bell rang and they both went to their corners, the body language was different, and I was a little bit puzzled.
Bivol seemed more confident.
They were celebrating with Bivol, and I remember thinking, why are you celebrating? You didn't win this fight. You got caught at the finish line. But Better Beef went back to his corner. Now, you made the point before the show, not to me, I think on social media. It's somewhat of a fair point that you made. Well, who fought more their fight? Who was more satisfied in the way they did? Even though Bivol was favored going into the fight, Better Beef was considered the monster in this fight, not Bivol. Bivol, you know, he survived and didn't get knocked down the whole fight and fought well. So in a sense, that's a victory in itself. He survived against the monster. It's kind of in a way like Ali surviving 15 rounds against Joe Frazier in the fight of the century. Or let's say Ali did knock Foreman out and he went to full 15, or someone going to full 15 against Sonny Liston. The monster's never going to be satisfied with going the distance. It was the first time Better Beef had to go the distance in his unbeaten career. So he wasn't going to be in a celebratory mood as handlers, and he was fighting from behind, all fight Better Beef. If Better Beef legitimately won the fight, if he did it by catching Bivol at the finish line from behind.
That's a good way to put it. I agree with that.
I don't see him celebrating. This isn't the Rocky movie where Apollo Creed is happy a judge scored for him over club fighter Balboa. That's not real life, what we saw, with Apollo Creed. But real life is a guy like Better Beef who expects to deliver a statement and knock Bivol out, and he couldn't do it. So,
So, Jack, what do we do with the
I would have been happy with a draw, even though I scored for better beef. I would have been happy.
Same here. I feel the exact same way. So what do we do with the judge? You had 8-4 because I don't think there's 8 rounds that either guy won.
No, I agree, but I'm going to say this. Let's say that the judge screwed up badly on one round. Let's just say that's one round that Bivol clearly won, that he, for whatever reason, he screwed up and he gave it to Beterbiev. Are we going to suspend this guy, kick him out? Don't let him judge again. If the guy scored it like 11 rounds to 1, something crazy, then boot him out, take away his license. 8-4 was too wide, but not. All you do is sit the judge down, and if the judge says, "Hey, I blew it in that one round. If I would have given it to Bivol, I would have had it 115, 113." And no one would have gotten hype about it. Eddie Hearn's saying that the judge should never work again. He goes on and on and on. Glenn Feldman was the judge in the rematch between Alexander Usyk and Anthony Joshua. We both agree Usyk won that fight probably 8-4. But Glenn Feldman scored it for Joshua, Eddie Hearn's guy, 7-5. It was a split decision. I didn't hear Eddie Hearn say, "What a travesty. AJ didn't deserve the decision."
So you're saying Eddie? So Jack, you're saying Eddie Hearn's a hypocrite? I mean,
Eddie Hearn
I buy it.
Eddie Hearn is honest in his assessment a lot of the time, and I admire him for that. I really do. But he twists things in a subtle way. You don't take a judge's license away if he screwed up badly in one round. It shouldn't happen in a fight of this magnitude. I don't
think his license should be taken away, but you said something a minute ago, which to me is a big indictment, and I wouldn't mind the guy being suspended. You said a round that Bivol clearly won, that maybe he gave the better beef. Well, to me, Jack, if you're a pro, you shouldn't make that mistake. If Bivol clearly won the round and he got in better beef, he scored it for, then to me, that's a big problem. I'm sorry. So do I think he should be suspended? No, I just don't. I have a problem with 8-4. I don't think it was that hard of a fight to score. You had two contrasting styles. That's what made it a great fight. And look, I came away thinking more and less of both guys than I had going in. I mean, Beterbiev isn't quite the monster killer puncher I thought. And I thought Bivol would put his punches together a little bit better than he did. But in saying that, I also realized that, Jack, I don't think he sat down on his punches because I really do think he felt the strength of Beterbiev in the fight. I think that the strain of trying to outbox him and hold him off at the same time, I really do think took a lot out of him. I think that's why he had to run the clock out in the last 2 rounds and try to play keep away. That's never a good look. That's why
hurt in the 11th. Bivol was hurt in the 11th round at the end of the round.
That too, okay, but that's why I think, Jack. The saying is, in a rematch, I mean, like, again, we'll go back. Ali Frazier won. Everybody said, well, Ali can change for the first fight, and Frazier really can't. Can he fight that good again? Yeah, and that kind of played out, and that was the case. But in this fight, Jack, I just don't think Bivol can fight any better or smarter than he did Saturday night. And I think that Beterbiev can pick it up a little bit more and start a little sooner. And I think the strength factor and the physicality will be more of a factor in a rematch. And I would have to favor Beterbiev conclusively in a rematch.
Well, even though it didn't pan out this way with Ali Frazier, I remember what Frazier said after the first fight. They asked him, do you think Ali would want a rematch? And Frazier says, I don't think he'd want to go through that again, even though it didn't pan out that way. It was 3 years later when they would fight.
You remember what Ali said when they told him that.
Yeah, exactly. So with Bivol, you wonder, he got a taste of not so much Beterbiev's power that he fears, but he knows what he's going to have to go through in a rematch. And with that way on his mind, saying, man, I I can't get in any better shape. This is the best I can do. Maybe it was good enough to win. I didn't get the decision from the judges. He says, he's very sporting. He says, look, I accept it. And both guys were sports.
No, they were great. They were great after the fight, both of them.
Better Beef said Bivol showed more skills than he did. He didn't say, oh, yeah, I think I won the fight. Commentators and media try to provoke these fighters into thinking they won the fight. Now, no matter what, they'll give him every excuse to say, oh, yeah, I think I won the fight. And if the fighter's not sure, maybe he'll try to avoid the question. Like, remember Shane Mosley at the press conference after the rematch with Oscar De La Hoya? Mosley was given a disputed decision. He asked Mosley, did you think you watched the fight? He says, well, I'll have to go back and look at the film and the tape. Very diplomatic, answer on something like that. But what I was thinking of too, Frank? Bivol and Beterbiev combined, I think both guys last Saturday would have beaten Andre Ward and Sergey Kovalev. Ward and Kovalev that fought one another. I think both Bivol and Beterbiev would have beaten both. I think Beterbiev would have beaten Ward. Ward wouldn't have been able to stop him, knock him out. He would have gotten Ward out of there. And I think Bivol would have outboxed Kovalev.
I think that Beterbiev and Bivol both beat Kovalev. I'm not sure if Bivol beats Ward, and I would make Beterbiev a favorite over Ward because I agree with you. The strength factor might be the difference. But again, Jack, if these guys fight again, the only thing Bivol could do, and somebody said it on my Facebook page, and I kind of agree, he can clinch more, but that's not a good look, and it really is ceding to the other guy that I can't fight you. I have to hold you and hug you and tie you up. So, I mean, in all honesty, a lot of people, and I know I say this a lot of people are interested in a rematch. I'm not as interested in anybody else because I think, even though I thought Bivol shaded the fight, I think the fact is that Beterbiev is probably the better fighter as it stands and is clearly the best light heavyweight in the world. And again, in a rematch, Jack, I can't see Bivol pulling it off. I just don't know. He's just not strong enough, and I don't think he's willing to take a chance to sit down on his punches enough to try to hurt Beterbiev.
I think it's styles. I know I mentioned Joe Frazier a couple of times in this show, so I'm going to kind of invoke his name again here. Would you agree with this? Not since Smoking Joe Frazier have we had a fighter, pound for pound, who has put on the type of effective pressure on an opponent as Artur Beterbiev does. Not since Joe Frazier. Effective pressure. I'm not talking about cutting the ring off,
Or just going forward. No, effective aggression.
Puts them under duress, under major duress.
I mean, I think Chavez is in that class, Jack. Obviously, Duran. But, I mean, I think you make a valid point. I think Frazier was the best at that style as a heavyweight. And Beterbiev is... he's making a case for himself. It's like he's so strong. He's not a killer puncher, but he's heavy-handed. He doesn't have to hit you clean to do damage or take it out of you. And you could see that with Bivol because not many of his shots landed cleanly, but you could tell they were affecting him. Even when he was cuffing him and blocking him and taking him on the shoulders and arms, you could see that there was impact there.
Yeah, you're going to have David Benavidez and David Morrell fighting. And the winner, whoever wins that fight, if they win it decisively, they're going to be another big-name opponent for the Beterbiev-Bivol rematch winner. So all of a sudden, Beterbiev or Bivol, whoever could survive their mini rivalry next fight, they're going to become a big name, big fights. Especially if it's David Benavidez. If he knocks
the problem is,
out,
Jack, Beterbiev is 40 years old. So if that fight he might be 41, late into 41 or 42 by the time he fights Benavidez because he's going to be 40 in January.
So if you're Bivol, do you stretch the rematch out? You say, okay, I'll fight him again, but let it be a year from now. Let him get a little older. Instead of me meeting him in 4 to 6 months, let me have one fight in the interim, a safe fight, because I've made obviously good money, and you fight him in a year.
I mean, that's one school of thought. Hope that he slows down. I mean, you could look at it that way. I'm not sure how much of a difference it'll make, but I mean, he's also going to be 34 in December. That's a lot younger. I mean, yeah, I guess if you stretch it out, and the style that Beterbiev fights is supposed to burn guys out, but he's only had 21 fights, so it's not like he's taken a lot of punishment or he's been worked over.
Yeah, and I also thought of the 8-person light heavyweight imaginary tournament, the other unification fight, Spinks, Kawi, and Foster and Rondon. Rondon would be the odd man out because Foster stretched him in 2 rounds. But it would have been intriguing to watch an Arthur Beterbiev moving in on a Bob Foster and being there to be hit. There's an excellent chance Foster, knocks Beterbiev out. And if he doesn't, then Beterbiev would get to Foster in 5-6 rounds or whatever.
The fight I'd like to see? Well, I mean, obviously we can never see it, but to think about the best Roy Jones at 175 against Beterbiev. Talk about a style clash.
If Roy Jones didn't knock him out and Beterbiev kept coming at Jones, wow, Jones would be in trouble. I got to believe with Jones's skill level, he would be able to hit him enough times to eventually get him out of there. But I have some doubt. I have some real doubt that Beterbiev.
I think that's a real tough fight to pick.
And he's the naturally bigger guy. So Beterbiev could take everything that Jones throws at him. Where's Jones going to go? Where's Jones going to go in a fight like that? I mean, he's not going to circle and start boxing in a way he hasn't before. Really interesting.
I do think this though, Jack. After watching that fight, I don't think there's no doubt in my mind that Qawi and Spinks would both beat Beterbiev.
Yeah, I would think so because Qawi wasn't going to get knocked out by anyone. Okay, I mean, Qawi would just, keep coming at him, and eventually Beterbiev wouldn't have to, he wouldn't be backing Qawi up because Qawi would be meeting the ring center, and Beterbiev would become flustered at some point in the second half of the fight.
I mean, Qawi chased Holyfield around for 15 rounds, and that was at 190 pounds. He's not going to get stopped by Beterbiev.
No, and Spinks is a little too skillful, a big punch, really big.
And he can punch.
Yeah.
And he would get clean shots in, and that jab would set things up.
Yeah.
But I mean, we're talking about all-time greats. I mean, there's no doubt Beterbiev is going to make the Hall of Fame. And he probably would, if he retired right now, Jack, he'd probably go down in the top 20 greatest light heavyweights ever. I
mean, yeah, well, I know the way Ibro has it, because I'm working on a project, as you know, and they rate certain of the greatest light heavyweights, 3 guys who weren't even light heavyweight champions, Ezra Charles, Gene Tunney, Sam Langford. They're like in the top 5. I think Ezra Charles is 1, and I'm not sure the exact order. Bob Foster's 5, Mike Spinks 6, and then you have Archie Moore. Right, Langford, Charles, and Tunney in the top 5, and they won light.
He's not in their league.
Yeah, but in any event, it was to me it was a good fight. Good fight, Beterbiev Bivol, very good fight. I was a little annoyed with the zone. I thought the undercard was free to subscribers. And all of a sudden, I find out it's $20. And I'm saying it's not that great of an undercard. It's okay. I'd like to see
I only saw the main event, Jack.
Yeah, and the main event, I'm going to tell you, I thought that'd be a lead-in. Good thing I tuned in at 6 and I caught it just as it was starting.
Yes, same here.
I could have missed it. I could have came in 10 after 6, figuring I'm going to have, the pre-fight stuff, and I could have conceivably come in the third round.
But there was a concert before the fight again, right?
The what?
I read that there was a concert before the main event. They had another one of those mini concerts like they did with the boy and Joshua.
Yeah, well, they like to do that. There's not much atmosphere, I hear, at the fights in Saudi Arabia. And His Excellency, before the decision was announced, I was looking where he was standing. He was standing right behind Bivol, and I remember saying to myself, he thinks Bivol's going to get the decision. He's really
And he
confident.
thinks he should have. He's been pretty vocal about that.
But it was interesting, the positioning. And if I'm better beat now, I'm thinking, what's with His Excellency? He wasn't looking like he was impartial in the middle between the two of us.
Right.
He was there ready to congratulate Bivol. And listen, if Bivol got the decision, I mean, I wasn't going to cry about it, even though I thought Beterbiev won the fight. I would have understood it in social. I listened to the majority. And if the majority people say one thing who scored the fight, and I scored it another way, I have to think, wow, if enough knowledgeable people I know see it one way, they're probably more right than I am, more accurate than I am. But what bothers me on social media, Frank, these people who didn't score the fight, a lot of them are saying, well, I didn't really score it, but I had Bivol up by a point. What the hell are they talking about, Frank? You have to score it round by round to give an honest assessment. You know what that's like, Frank? You and I going to an NBA game, laughing and joking, having a hot dog and a beer, talking back and forth. No idea what's going on the scoreboard. We can't look at the scoreboard at all, and the game's over. And I'm saying, I think the 76ers won this game. I had them up by 12 points. When in reality, they've been 2 points behind, You know
what makes me more crazy than that, Jack? Are the guys that say, well, I watched the fight and I had it scored this score. And then I went back and I rewatched it and I scored it different. I have a huge problem with that because the fight always looks different when you know the result. And the judges don't get do-overs. Why should the fans? You get one shot to see it live, and whatever your live score is, that's your score. Yeah. I don't want to hear, I watched it 5 times and I switched on 2 rounds. No, you didn't. However you scored the round the night of the fight is how you scored it.
Well, I'm thinking of CompuBox too, because I kind of wanted to talk a little about it today in relation to the Beterbiev Bivol fight. I'm a fan of CompuBox, but I know it's not the end all. I'm fully aware of that. And statistically speaking, if it's accurate completely, Beterbiev threw 265 more punches. Now, even if he missed 260 of the 265, he's at least working.
There's something to be said for that, Jack. There is.
Right. So,
but other guys will say that wasn't effective aggression, though.
Yeah, and they could have been right. But if he's throwing punches, at least he's forcing Bivol on the defense. Even though Bivol, you could say, he's making a miss. And I don't know how
my issue with CompuBox is you and I could sit down and watch the same fight. We'll come up with different numbers. And then the other thing is, say you have another guy who throws 100 more punches, and you think, well, okay, over the course of 12 rounds, that's almost 10 punches a round. But maybe he had one round where he really unloaded an extra 30 or 40, and then it's not weighted the same. So that's why I'm not that crazy about CompuBox. Is it a tool? Sure it is. But I don't think it's close to the be-all, end-all, and I can live without it, actually.
Yeah. We're talking about Michael Spinks, and the one close fight in Michael Spinks' championship reign,
Eddie Davis,
light heavyweight champion, was Eddie Davis. And I looked at the CompuBox stats, and they might, by a tiny bit, it looked like it favored Eddie Davis. But then you looked at punches landed round by round, and Spinks landed more punches in 7 of the 12 rounds. Even if it was by a little bit, And if we score rounds as a separate entity and we're going according to what CompuBox, is saying, it's a tough thing to evaluate. But I kind of like it as a guide, what it provides. And I'll be honest about it, Frank. A lot of times when I have doubts how I scored a round, and I'm thinking, I may have blown it in that round. Maybe I should have given it to the other fighter. And then they show you the punch count, and it favors the guy who I scored the round for. Like, I'm relieved. Oh, okay, I didn't mess up the
Jack,
round.
think about this, though. They did the CompuBox on the first Ali Frazier fight, and if you pulled a bunch of fans and said who landed more punches in that fight, they would say Ali, but it was Frazier that landed more shots because he went to the body. Ali hit him 4 times in the body? It's like, so it's kind of, in a way, you kind of get a little bit thrown off because it seems the body punches say they just don't count like they should. But if I said to, the average boxing fan that saw Super Fight 1, I said, who do you think landed more punches? They would say Ali, but yet it was Frazier.
Yeah. Getting back, I guess we're all over the place a little with Eddie Hearn. Eddie Hearn, he's all over the place. I shouldn't say we are, even though we are to a degree. Eddie Hearn was complaining about Tyson being put in with Jake Paul because he's 58 years old, this and that. He's not wrong. I don't like anyone that age boxing. But Eddie Hearn has his fighter Katie Taylor on the show against Amanda Serrano. So he says, well, I can't turn down the payday. I'm going to leave right after that fight. I'm not going to hang around for Tyson and Jake Paul. It's like trying to be so righteous. The reason Katie Taylor is getting that big purse is because of the interest that Tyson and Jake Paul are providing. They're
I'm just stretching my back out, Jack. I'm listening.
Yeah, they're riding on the coattails of Tyson and Paul. And did you see also before the Better Beef Evolve thing during the whole weekend, Conor Benn is dogging Chris Eubank Jr. the whole time trying to get in his face, provoke him. Eddie Hearn is in on it. I have no doubts that Eddie Hearn told him to make a big ruckus, a big fuss, create interest, like there's a terrible feud, curse him out, this, to make it a fight people want to see. I'm going to tell you, if I genuinely couldn't stand the guy and the guy's being obnoxious, I just wouldn't fight him. That's the best way you get your revenge on him. You get back on him. It happened that way with Ricky Hatton and Junior Witter. Okay? Junior welterweights from England. Junior Witter badly wanted to fight Ricky Hatton. Rather than just sit down and say, Ricky, can I talk to you a moment? Is there any way with the managers we can work this out? Like gentlemen.
They got to do their shtick.
He bad-mouthed Hatton, tried to get in his face, and Hatton thought, I'm going to get my revenge on this guy. I'm the big money ticket. I'm just not going to fight him. That's how I'm going to get back at him, and I'm going to deprive him of the big payday. And that's what Hatton did, and would have never got the big fight, in England against Hatton the way he could have.
Aren't you a little tired of the Conor Benn and the Benns and the Eubanks going back and forth? It just seems so contrived.
No, I think it's sincere. I think Conor Benn's a bit desperate. He said, let's face it, he was suspended for drug use or substance abuse or steroid use or whatever.
Right.
But he's under suspension. And of course, he's claiming he's completely innocent. And Eddie Hearn is speaking on his behalf as innocent. But the British, boxing board is holding firm. And he's, he had a fight here in America, but his career really took a backward step, because of that. And, speaking of stuff.
Jack.
Yeah.
Let's talk about, if you want, let's mention a project that you're working on that I don't think many people know about.
Oh, right. I got the contracts to sign. So finally, I feel safe.
So tell everybody what it is.
I'm collaborating on a book. It's going to be his biography with Michael Spinks. Okay?
Michael stinks.
Michael stinks. Yeah, Michael stinks. Yeah.
Remember Side saying that at all those fights ringside?
I'm such a hypocrite, Frank. I'm going to say Michael Spink's the greatest light heavyweight champion in boxing history. You know, but no, listen, I sat down with Michael already. You know, we talked, so on, you know, had dinner together and everything. And he understands it can't be self-serving. I'm doing a lot of interviews. I'm going to be speaking to Larry Holmes this week, you know, got arranged. It's in the next couple of days. Myself and Larry Holmes are going to be speaking. And Holmes could tell me whatever he wants, and I'm basically going to put his viewpoint in the book. And I'm not going to leave it out if you know, Michael doesn't like it, to say, and Michael, to his credit, understands that. He says everything goes. But he'll have a chance, obviously, to give his viewpoint into things. You know, I've spoken to Mustafa Muhammad, who he won the title from, and I spoke to Jerry Cooney. You know, so there's going to be some revealing stuff, you know, the way these guys feel. Eddie Davis, who had the controversial fight against him, I spoke.
How did it go with Eddie Mustafa and Cooney? Were they free flowing with their thoughts?
Eddie Mustafa, very honest. I could tell he was sincere in his views. Cooney was animated. That's all I'm going to say. He was really animated.
He has a hard time with that fight.
Well, to put it mildly, yeah. To put it mildly, I'm not going to say what he said, but he went off on other subjects voluntarily on his own. And I thought when I called Jerry, he would be hesitant to talk about the fight because it's well known that that's the one fight of his career that he regrets. You know, he could live with his losses to Larry Holmes.
To Holmes and Foreman.
And losing to Holmes in a way now is a badge of honor to Cooney, because that's
right.
The fight that made him, you know, famous in boxing. And you lose to George Foreman, no disgrace. It was at the end of his career. He got knocked out. He can accept that. But losing,
and Foreman turned out to be legit in the comeback, so it wasn't like he lost to nobody.
Right, and he staggered Foreman, to his credit, too. Foreman said after the fight next to Ron Lyle, he hit me the hardest. Well, you know, Ali knocking him out, it was probably hit him harder than Cooney, of course, but we think of Foreman collapsing against Ali more because of fatigue than Ali's power.
Right.
Even though it's a combination of both. So he was really animated, and I still have to speak to a few other people for the project. I'm going to be I have a contact, I'll be in touch with Sugar Ray Leonard, his Olympic teammates, the other guys on the Olympic team. You know, I'll be in
I
touch
think the
with
Holmes conversation will be interesting, Jack, and I would be interested, and I think in the people reading the book will have interest in what happened in the first fight. Did Holmes totally underestimate him? Was it a style thing? Does Holmes think that he won the fight? Because I had that fight 7-7 going into the 15th round, and there's no way on this earth that Spinks did not win the 15th round. So giving Holmes the benefit of every doubt, he lost that fight 8-7.
Well, I used to score even rounds back in the day. And I remember the first fight, I had Spinks winning 8-6-1, same as the 8-7, basically.
Okay.
The even round given.
But Spinks 8 rounds.
And in the rematch, I had Holmes winning 8-6-1. Those were my two scores. And one of the things
I had the rematch 9-6.
For Holmes?
For Holmes.
For Holmes, right. And one of the things I give Michael a lot of credit for, he knows that's got to get broached, those topics. But, you know, there's a lot of good stuff that's going to be in the book about what went on with Leon. We know Leon was wild, but some behind-the-scenes stuff. What went on with Butch Lewis, you know, at Butch Lewis Productions. There were a lot of different behind-the-scenes stuff. I've spoken to a lot of people. I spoke to one, Frank Laterzo, who I found out sparred with Michael Spinks 10, 12 times and one of you two guys, you would always ease up on the other guy, unless the other guy got out of line. If Spinks got out of line, then you.
I brought him back in, Jack. That's it.
That's what I kind of heard. And you were helpful, giving me a feel of the gym. Some of the guys there. Yeah,
Michael, Jack. I think it's great that you're doing the book, and I think a lot. I think what I like about it. Look, Hagler loses his last fight. It's a disputed decision. Okay, I think he won I thought Larry won the fight, but there are almost as many people that think Hagler won the fight. All right, so he goes out on a loss. Not the worst thing in the world. Spinks lost one fight. It was his last fight, and he got beat decisively by a guy who, at that time, there were people that thought Tyson might be the greatest heavyweight ever. Okay, Spinks caught him on his best night. It was a bad style matchup, and I just think that Michael doesn't get the props that he deserves as a great fighter. Because look, we both love Jerry Cooney, and we know there's some other issues that were going on regarding that fight. But the bottom line is, Spinks was in there with Jerry Cooney, and Jerry Cooney did hit him, and he survived. And that takes a lot for Spinks to fight a guy that big and survive. It says a lot about him. And again, Jack, I browbeat you with this before you're doing the book. Spinks, as a technician in the ring, could do everything. He could attack. He could counter. He could use the ring. He could box. He had a terrific jab, big right hand, big uppercut, big hook. I think he was only down one time. It was more or less a push or a shove against Kwawi. Am I correct about that? As a light heavyweight?
And listen to this. I shouldn't be giving away the stuff that would be in the book, but in my conversations with Larry Hazzard, I asked him, if you had to do it all over again, would you call that a knockdown? He said, probably not.
So that's pretty impressive that a guy fought. You could make a case that he was the best light heavyweight during the best era in the division.
Well, I was of the opinion, and if you asked me who would have won in a head-to-head matchup at light heavyweight, Forster and Spinks, I would have favored Forster. But if you asked me who was the greater fighter, it was absolutely Spinks, who could move up to heavyweight and who had basically more skills in the ring. I didn't realize. I saw virtually every fight that Michael Spinks fought that was televised, and most of them were once he got to a certain level. And you watch it again, Frank. I know what you said before. When you score a fight, you see it live, you score it, case closed. You can never score it effectively again because you know what happened. But you can appreciate a fighter's skills by watching him.
Absolutely. I'm on board with. Absolutely.
I'm watching
strategy,
Spinks,
the whole bit. Absolutely.
And I'm saying, I didn't realize he was that good. I knew he was obviously a great fighter with what he accomplished. This guy is good. And I remember, I think I said it to you on the phone. This guy could fight on the inside. This guy could fight on the outside.
Exactly. He could do it all.
You come at him too recklessly. He was a big, big puncher. Okay, on top of it, he took a good punch if you happen to, get inside and hit him with a hard hook. Had championship caliber stamina, in which the longer the fight would go on, the more it would favor him.
Yep, he fought 50-round fights. Let me ask you this. You said you think in a head-to-head matchup, you'd favor Forster over Spinks.
That was my impression all along. I'm not going to go away from it because I'm doing the book. I would have to really watch a lot more tape on Forster. I saw Forster's fights when he actually fought. Okay.
Right.
And Forster was such a devastating puncher. But could Spinks have evaded his blows and then eventually?
Well, Jack, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Forster's best punch was his left hook, right?
Yeah.
What was Jerry Cooney's best punch?
Well, the left hook.
Do you think there's any comparison in their power? I don't.
Well, no. Spinks was a heavyweight at that point. Spinks as a heavyweight would have.
Jack, he was only but he was only 200 pounds at that time in those fights, or 205. My point is this: if he could stay in there for 5 rounds with Jerry Cooney, and I have no doubt that there's a world of difference between Cooney's left hook and Spinks's Foster's left hook. And if Cooney had a hard time landing it and didn't really make that much of an impact on him when he did, I'm just not sure Foster would. Just like I remember, Jack, do you remember when Frazier and Foster fought? There were some people that thought Foster had the harder punch. And I remember thinking to myself as a 12-year-old, are you guys crazy? And we saw that would happen when they fought. There was no comparison. And if you compare how Foster's hook affected Ali compared to how Frazier's hook did, it's a different world. So the fact that Spinks could have a guy even much bigger, more powerful than Foster in front of him and survive, I don't think Foster gets him out. I think Spinks wins that fight.
Spinks is a true. If they both bulked up in weight, Spinks knocks Foster out. If Foster's 190, 195, and Spinks is the same, Spinks knocks Foster out. I'm thinking at 175.
I think Spinks went to 75 too, Jack.
Perhaps,
and if you look at their level of opposition, I could make a case that Michael Spinks beat 4 guys who would have defeated every title challenger that Foster defended the title against. And they are Yaki Lopez, Marvin Johnson, Eddie Mustafa, and Kwawi. I think all 4 of those guys, I think Yaki Lopez beats every light heavyweight that Bob Foster defended against, including Dick Tiger and Rondon and Mike Quarry.
I agree with Rondon and Mike Quarry. We're talking about Dick Tiger here, though. And Dick Tiger was a great fighter.
I know, Jack.
Great fighter. And,
still a short middleweight.
Yaki Lopez, who Masad Muhammad described as a war machine, does he really get Dick Tiger out of there?
I don't know if he gets him out, Jack, but I think he can outbox him and outwork him. I mean, look at the guys Yaki fought. That he went disputed decisions with Galendez and Connie, and he beat Rossman, and he gave Saad life and death, not once, but twice. I can't see Dick Tiger doing that to Saad.
You know what it is? Yeah, well, Saad Muhammad was usually on the brink. He would really come back. You know what's interesting, too, and I've been asking, some of the other light heavyweights, I've been getting in touch with some of Spinks's opponents who he defended his title against, and the ones that are around, of course. And they all seem to hold him in high regard. And I don't want to say for the book, but one of his high-profile opponents, I asked who would have won between Saad and Michael Spinks. And they were on the fence. They said it was a toss-up. I don't want to say who the fighter was. I'm going to say for the book, not give everything away. He said Spinks was the greater fighter, but it would have been a toss-up fight because Saad Muhammad was so tall, rangy, such a powerful puncher. To me, I'm confident Spinks beats Saad Muhammad. You're obviously very familiar with both, but I can't see Miracle Matt, coming from behind and suddenly knocking Spinks out in the later rounds of the fight. I just don't see that scenario.
I think the fight goes the distance, and I think this is why Spinks is a greater fighter, Jack. Spinks was the type guy that he was okay with boxing and winning a decision. And I think with Saad, he would have looked at him almost like maybe the way a Bivol would look at a better Beeve, where maybe I can beat him if I fight him, but I'm going to box him. I'm going to use my feet. I'm going to use the jab. Maybe I can cut him up, swallow his eyes up, but I'm going to go the sure, safe route, and I'm going to box him. And I just think Spinks, because I don't think he would have tried to knock him out. I think he would have outboxed Matt and won a decision.
Yeah. But it's just fascinating reliving Spinks' career. One of his opponents who he stopped in the light heavyweight title defense, I won't say who it is now, told me, no, they stopped it in my corner between rounds. I wanted to continue. And I watched the tape again, and it was what I remembered. I'm watching all the tapes anyway again. He's getting pummeled, and the ref saves him, and he's saying it stopped in the corner between rounds because he had a cut. It had nothing to do with having a cut. But some of these guys put a spin on it. Another opponent, I had to kind of chase after him, call him a few times. He finally picked up the phone. And he said, look, the fight was a long time ago. I could tell he didn't want to talk about it, but this past contender, then he was a good guy. He spoke to me, but he wasn't enthusiastic. He did it kind of out of obligation. He was like a player who lost a tough game, and he's upset, and he's at the post-fight press conference, and he has to relive it, what went down. And interesting stuff.
Jack, think about that mindset where you're one of those guys that you lost a fight that you thought you were in the fight, and you have all these years to think about it and go back, and just like you kind of wish, God, if I would have just done this or that, history would be so much different. And that's got to be hard to live with. I mean, look, I think Spinks beat Eddie Davis. I think it was very close. But if you're Eddie Davis, he probably legitimately believes that he won the fight. And look how that would have changed his life.
Well, yeah. Well, he did legitimately believe he won it, and I spoke with his manager, Dennis Rappaport, spoke with his brother, Johnny Davis. Eddie's not around anymore. And spoke with the judges, too. Well, there were three judges. One's no longer around, two are. And the two judges who scored it by a wide margin were Larry Hazzard and Joe Cortez, referees who were judges. Which is interesting.
Jack, how did they score it? I forget.
Carol Castellano had it 115, 114, Spinks, the way I had it. And when I met Spinks for the book, I said, Michael, I'm going to be honest with you. This can't be self-serving. I thought your fight with Eddie Davis was very close. I thought you won, but just barely. I'm not going to, I can't be told what to write in the book that you won clearly, that this type of thing I write upsets you. We've got to be completely honest. We have to go with the perception of the majority. Like in the Holmes rematch, the perception is by the majority that Holmes should have gotten the decision. But there's a way to write it and put it down. Oh, but the other two judges in the Davis fight, Larry Hazzard had it 118, 111, and Joe Cortez had it 119, 109. Now,
and you spoke to them about that?
I spoke to Larry Hazzard, and Larry Hazzard was magnificent. He said, I'm a better referee than I am a judge, And he's right. He was a heck of a good referee, in my opinion. I don't know what you think of him as a ref.
I thought he was tremendous.
Yeah, exactly. And then he mentioned, when I come with Joe Cortez, he says, you see what happens when you have refs scoring fights? How can you argue? That's where they make their name, Cortez and Hazzard, as refs. But listen, in the past, Frank, which is an amazing thing, they get judges and refs who weren't really qualified. I mean, for example, we laughed about Joe Louis reffing the rematch Frazier and Quarry. That was like suicidal. Remember when Quarry said, I had enough, He wanted the fight stopped, and Louis is waving him back in,
And Jersey Joe Walcott with Al Lee and Liston.
Yeah, Bob Foster, he refereed the Frazier Ellis rematch in Australia.
In Australia, yes.
Yeah.
He didn't do a bad job there, but there wasn't that much to do.
Yeah, I mean, you could get away with it, right, if there's not much to do, a minimum to do, whatever. It's much easier for us on the outside of the ropes, for example, to judge when a ref should stop a fight. It's much harder, I think, when you're actually on the inside, because once you stop it, you pull the plug on the fighter, and the mindset too of giving the fighter every chance. You give them every chance to get killed, which is more important than every chance to come back and win a fight.
Do you think a ref should score a fight?
You want to know? So I used to believe that all the time when they did, not anymore. You
think they have enough to do to enforce the rules and protect the fighters?
You want to know? He can if you have 4 judges, one on every side of the ring, and then the ref is a 5th. But I think they have enough to do. They can't keep analyzing the fight, how it's going. They have to concentrate on what they're doing. Oh, by the way, some fights currently, before we wrap up, we have a few minutes. Tim Tszyu returns to the ring Saturday, to get an IBF super middleweight belt.
Go ahead, say his opponent's name.
Bakram Murtalayev.
That's good enough for me.
Wait. Did I say? Wait. Did I say? I think junior middleweight belt. What am I saying? Who gives it done? No, super middleweight. I'm out of it. Whatever. Who cares?
Yeah, the light middleweight, junior middleweight.
Light middleweight, right?
Right, the IBF light middleweight title.
Intriguing fight. Looks like it's going to take place. The Towering Inferno, Sebastian Fundora against Errol Spence. Now, I gave Fundora very little chance against Tim Tszyu. So what do I know? I thought Tim Tszyu absolutely was going to beat Fundora. Fundora upset Tim Tszyu. So Fundora showed he's a quality fighter. You have to beat Tim Tszyu. And he's fighting Errol Spence. What has Errol Spence done to earn a chance at one of the sanctioning body belts?
He has a big name, Jack. That's it. We know how that goes.
And Terence Crawford stepped aside to allow that fight to take place. I get the feeling, just the feeling, Frank.
Crawford's going to retire?
No, Crawford would like to see Spence win and pick up a belt. And this way he could do his rematch with Spence, and maybe the public would buy it. If
Spence looked good, yeah, it would sell.
All of a sudden, Spence will have some excuse for the first fight. People are going to say, no, Crawford didn't look invincible in his last fight. Spence will say, look, I just had an off night. Terence had an off night in his last fight. It happens. Big enough name, Errol Spence. You maybe put the fight on in Dallas, or whatever, and you have a fight.
Jack, Spence Fundora is a tough call because we don't know what Spence has. I know Fundora can fight, and he's pretty good offensively, and he's hard to get to. Spence is going to have to pay a price to get in on him. I don't know what the Crawford fight did to him. I mean, I think it's good that he's been off, but I don't know what the repercussions are going to be from that fight and how he's going to hold up in the heat of battle if he's in another tough fight.
Frank, it's 15 months since he fought Crawford.
I mean, that's probably a good thing, though, don't you think?
No, I don't think it's good. I think the skills just erode more and more. We have no idea. You said it best. We have no idea what he has left. None at all. If he's the Errol Spence of the past, of years ago, yeah, he'll win the fight. But who knows what he has?
We have no idea about that. Jack, the other thing that was announced is Fury. I'm sorry, Joshua and Dubois are fighting in February.
Oh, I didn't know it's official that they're absolutely doing it.
I think it's pretty. If it's not, it's pretty close, and it looks like it's going to be in February. I don't think Joshua's chin or confidence gets any better between now and February.
You got to give Joshua credit, Frank. There's a real fighter. Want to go?
He's a real fighter. He's going back in there. I'll give him that. Absolutely.
A tremendous respect in this day and age where they pick and choose. Joshua, for the most part during his career, he would just take on the toughest challenges, and credit to him for at least doing the rematch.
Do we still believe that Usyk and Fury happens December 21st?
Yeah, I do. I do. I think Fury's training hard, as is Usyk. Yeah, I think it happens. And, this does time to, we'll discuss it next week, I think, because we're pretty much out of time. But it's going to be an intriguing fight when it arrives.
All right.